Jesus Christ.
I am meek and humble of heart. The heart of Christ. The heart of Christ is what Regnum Christi members, Regnum Christi apostles are striving to acquire. Not just to imitate, but in a way to have a heart transplant, a transformation of our own heart into Christ's heart. We want a heart in us that is burning like the heart of Christ with love for humanity and for the salvation of souls. We want a heart that is no longer like our old heart, that is a little bit selfish, a little bit too lazy. The heart of a Regnum Christi member is a heart that is on fire with passion and with love for souls. And it comes from both contemplating Christ, looking at him and seeing how he loves and seeing what's in his heart and how magnanimous his heart is. You guys all know the meaning of the word magnanimous. Greatness of soul. Magna anima. Okay? Great souled. I don't want missionaries who are weak-souled, who are not passionate in their hearts for love of Christ and of souls. We don't want missionaries who are duds. None of you are duds, okay? But if any of you are tempted to be a dud, I don't want that. Christ does not want that. He wants magnanimity. He wants greatness of soul. And I feel this passionately because I know what's in your hearts. I know there's a battle in your hearts. I know that there's a bit of a desire there to kind of take it easy, to make this year more about having fun or about being with the people I want to be with. So wait, I only got halfway through my thing. It was sorry, I didn't really write this out. We get this magnanimity, this love of the heart of Christ by looking at Christ's heart, but also by looking at one other thing, which is the world and the souls out there and the needs that souls have for Christ, for salvation. Some of you probably have, you probably all have friends like this who you know are trapped under the dominion of Satan. Maybe some of you have lived parts of your lives trapped under the dominion of sin. Father John Ricardo is going to talk about that in our next spiritual reading session. You know, we're not just here to have fun. You know, he brought that out in that last talk. The soldiers of the Allied soldiers who arrived in France on D-Day were not there to drink good coffee. They were not there to see the beaches. They were not there to look at art. No more are we here to do those things. We're here because there is a real spiritual battle going on. There's a real spiritual battle. So it's not enough for us to go on a mission year because it's going to be fun, or because, you know, my 5 friends did it, or because I wanted to spend a year in America, or because any of those reasons are not enough for a mission year. That is not the heart of Christ. That is not what's on Christ's mind or on his heart. Christ is looking at the world and he's seeing the soul in Everest Academy in Detroit, or at the Highlands in Dallas, or at Pinecrest in Atlanta, or at some public Catholic school in Ontario who's just like completely oblivious, who's depressed, or who's addicted to porn, or who's lost in whatever way. And he says, I need somebody to go to that person. I need someone who's going to stand up in their classroom and say, hey, I gave my life to Christ as a missionary this year because I love him. And you can go to confession. You don't need to be afraid. I need someone who's going to preach just a simple message to them with their words and with their life to change that person's life. It's real. It's real. It's a real mission. You know, the other day, yesterday, some of us were talking at lunch about possession and these people that I got to meet once who were possessed and had manifestations during Mass. Save that for another homily. But the church appoints exorcists with its authority. You know, when a priest gets named exorcist, he gets a decree on paper. It's official, right? And the church has the authority to do that. You know that exorcists, once they've been given the authority of the church, actually have the power to exorcise demons. Like in Italy, when I met these two girls who were possessed, I talked to the exorcist. And I talked to one girl who had already been delivered from a demon, from possession. Like, it's real. The church's authority to appoint people is real. And maybe you never thought of this before, but this is pretty cool because the church has the authority to approve movements in the church and to approve who the superiors of those movements are. And they have authority in the same way to make decrees. I received a letter saying, you will be the director of the Regnum Christi Mission Corps for Men. And you will receive a letter saying, you've been assigned to X city in North America. It's real. Like, this is actually church-approved stuff, which means that when you go to your mission, you're actually being sent by the church with the authority of the church, the same authority that appoints exorcists, the same authority that came down from Christ when he said, Peter, you're in charge here. You're the Pope. The same authority that the cardinals have when they elect a Pope and they make, with the power of the Holy Spirit, of course, but it's real. God is putting you there. So I tell you this because I know that, there's a lot at stake here. And a lot of you are, shaking in your boots, oh my gosh, where am I going to get sent? Am I going to like it? I urge you to make the decision to be magnanimous, to be like, God, I know that wherever you send me, there are souls there that I'm called to preach to. It's not about the external things, all the silly things we put on the board about food and, tourist attractions, Niagara Falls and great music down in Louisiana, all that stuff. It's not about that. Wherever you send me, there's going to be kids, there's going to be young people who need me to be a missionary to them. So it's about having the heart of Christ. It's about looking at them the way Christ looks at them. This person needs salvation. And, we talked about this in the homily the other day, but what does Christ say when he says, see someone who needs salvation? He says, I'd rather suffer than you. I'd rather suffer than see you suffer. I'd rather take upon myself the brutality of sin and the pain that sin causes than have to watch one of my children go through that. One of my loved ones go through that. Imagine a missionary who has a heart like that, a heart like Christ that's magnanimous, who every person that he meets on his mission year is someone that he loves deeply as a child. Like you, I got you joke about some of you being like dads, You've all got to be like that in a way. You've all got to have a father's heart that loves each of the people put in your care by Christ. Okay, I brought this up with me because the statutes, the devotion to the Sacred Heart is important to Regnum Christi because of this, because we contemplate Christ's heart in that way. And we see how it urges us to be like him. So it's a devotion to the Sacred Heart that's maybe a different style than your classical devotion in the church, which has a lot of offering up sacrifices and images of the Sacred Heart, right? We look at Christ, the image of Christ that Regnum Christi puts at the center is Christ the King, but it's his heart burning with love for humanity that moves us. And number 10, last time I talked to you about number 9, but this is number 10, says, the personal experience of Christ's love produces an interior urging in our hearts. Okay. The personal experience of Christ's love produces an interior urging in our hearts that impels us to passionate self-giving in order to make his kingdom present. Caritas Christi urget nos. That's what it says in Latin. The love of Christ impels us. The love of Christ urges us on. That's 2 Corinthians 5:14. Got that? Memorize it. 2 Corinthians 5:14. The love of Christ impels us. It really irks me, bugs me when I meet a Regnum Christi member who hasn't interiorized that verse yet, because it's so essential. It's so essential. There's this sense of urgency. A sense of urgency. A great image for that is Father John Ricardo's image from World War II. A sense of urgency. If we don't get there, if we don't get to the beaches, if we don't get to France, then this tyrant is going to keep on taking over the world. If missionaries don't go out to souls today, in America, in Canada, then the tyrant, the enemy, the devil, is going to keep on taking over souls. We have to. We have to go out. That's what urging means. That's what urgency means. I can't not do this. Oh, that's why I wish there were so many more men here. There should be like in Mexico, there were like 80 applicants for the collab year this year, right? There should be at least that many in North America. There should be so many more young men who are like, get me into a mission year. Because the world needs it. Because souls need it. The sense of urgency. Can you feel that? Can you feel? We need that. We need that. So the love of Christ impels us. The love of Christ impels us. With our gaze on two things, on Christ's heart and on the world. On his love, his example of love, his urgency, his self-sacrifice, and on the world that needs it, the souls out there that need it. You guys know the world. You've been there. You know the kids out there. You know how much they need it. As much as you did, as much as you still do. They need it. They need a preacher. They need someone to go. I think I talked about this one day, how it actually depends on us. Christ actually gives us responsibility. He could maybe somehow do it by himself, miraculously. Sometimes he converts people through miracle. Somebody's walking down the street, they see a church, they wander in, and boom, they're converted. That has happened. But usually Christ needs missionaries. Usually he depends on us. Usually he chooses to work in collaboration with humanity, with our humanity, with a person like you. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of number 10. We'll talk about that probably later in Regnum Christi spirituality class. Let's ask Christ for that grace to let our hearts be set on fire with the urgency of saving souls.